IVM.
We would like to thank Storytel for sponsoring this show. Storytel is an audiobook platform that lets you hear hundreds of thousands of stories on your PC, mobile, wherever you prefer. You can get a great deal for IVM listeners at storytel.com/IVM. This week I'm going to recommend The Ivory Throne by Manu Pillai. This is a book about the history of Kerala. Manu is an incredible writer and helps you truly understand the history of the region. I first heard him talk about this book on the Filter Coffee podcast with Karthik Nagarajan, and I couldn't wait to dive into this one after I heard that conversation. So, how do you get this book? Go to storytel.com/IVM, and what you'll do is when you sign up over there, instead of $2.99, you'll get your first month for 99 rupees. So you get $200 off on your first month. Go to storytel.com/IVM and go check out The Ivory Throne by Manu Pillai. Great book.
Hello one, hello all. Welcome to the Diary of the Traveling Professor. And I'm Siddharth Deshmukh, your friendly neighborhood traveling professor himself. As I shift from one place to the other in my quarantine time in my room, so I moved from my beautiful ocean view where I recorded my last podcast entry to a view which shows me a pretty ugly skyscraper on the other side of things. And I'm wondering why I've chosen this place as I record this diary entry. Perhaps just because I want to break the monotony of it all. Am I sounding sad? Nah, don't worry. I get out of quarantine soon enough, but then I'll be in home quarantine in Pune for another week. But at least it'll be a change of scene and will be with my family back home in Pune. So, what do I have in store for you this week, this diary entry of mine? I wanted to share something really interesting with you. I've been on both sides of the fence over here, so trust me, whatever I'm going to speak about right now, please take it with a pinch of salt, maybe don't take it as immediate direct criticism if you have been involved in one of these escapades or these encounters, right? I'm talking of a really funny experience I've had. I was part of a committee that was actually looking at presentations to improve a specific website. I'm not going to give you more details than that, because the people who already know about this are already sniggering a little bit. And there was this agency who was making a pitch for a website revamp or a redesign to this committee, and it was a very interesting affair. I call it the distributed presentation. The distributed presentation meant that while all of us were distributed in our own homes for this particular entity, which was in a city, the lead presenter from the other side was, speaking from the Middle East or something. And then there were a couple of others who were talking from another city. So there was this distributed presentation or this distributed pitch to gain business from this particular institution who needed a website revamp. And then the presentation began. And this is what my experience has been of the presentation. First observation, I think when it is a distributed presentation like this, perhaps a little more care needs to be taken when it comes to actually showing your faces. Yeah, in front of the camera, especially if it's Zoom. Because if it is not, and you've not seen people for the first time, what is happening is that you are kind of showcasing the fact that you have something to hide. I know it's unfortunate and a lot of people have bandwidth issues and sometimes it is not really possible to do this. And also maybe it is the new normal to hide your, face. But if it is a pitch type situation, I really think that sometimes you got to pull out all the stops and make sure that your face is seen because, trust is created when it's a face-to-face meeting, but especially if it's on Zoom or something, trust can be created by at least seeing facial expressions and body language of the person presenting. So that's observation 1. Observation 2 is in a distributed presentation when your co-presenter perhaps is in a different city and you are in a different city, I think it makes all the more reason for you to kind of prep it up and to understand what each and every person is doing and not take things for granted. So the presentation experience for the other side of the thing, right, for me at least, was a combination of the banal and the sublime. So there were some really good suggestions, some good observations, but which were coupled with a lot of banalities, banal observations and also stuff that I could have completely, and the committee could have completely avoided listening to, but like a templatized version of how they do things in their office and stuff like that. Completely redundant, I would say. So make sure that you have coordinated your presentation, especially if it's in distributed form. It is still a pitch and you need to come across as a team. The third thing and the final thing is please never ever underestimate your audience. Understand whom you're talking to. Now, here I am, a digital professor with a couple of other digital professors and a few other people who kind of understand the domain, right? Branding, of digital, of marketing and the rest of it. So if you are talking to an educated audience who perhaps is doing this for their rosy roti, then the last thing you want to do is try to teach them some basics of that specific discipline that they are masters of. Do your homework, people. Understand the level of sophistication of your audience. You don't need to explain and have a boilerplated version of your presentation which can fall flat in the face of a sophisticated audience. Don't ever do that, and especially in a distributed form, right? Don't ever do that. You're always going to lose out on some points when it comes to making an impression. If I was in your place, any agency who's making a distributed presentation, I would pick up the phone and say, hey, so, for my contact on the other side, what is the expected level of understanding of the subject matter on hand? Set up a relationship with this contact so that you don't feel alarmed towards asking some candid questions, because that would help you, enable you to make a much better presentation. Trust me, all of this stuff is coming from a good place in my heart. I'm not being a terrible critic. I'm trying to make sure that anybody who listens to this is going through a similar pitch sort of situation will perhaps listen to this kind of feedback or advice or whatever you want to call it and kind of incorporate it the next time they're making a pitch. Hopefully it will make a difference. Life is a pitch after all. Well, on that cliched note, the Traveling Professor wants to just talk about The Traveling Professor Investigates, which is a video series that you could look at. The latest one was on days of quarantine, but there are 4 episodes out there. Do take a look on them. They're on Instagram and on LinkedIn, where I am going by the handle of The Traveling Professor. If you like podcasts like these, do go to ivmpodcast.com or just download the app or go to wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and search for the IVM ones. They're really cool. On that happy note, see you next week.
I hope you enjoyed that show. If you aren't following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I'd like to thank our sponsors this week, Storytel and thewholetruthfoods.com. So, great week on the network. Number of really interesting shows for you guys to check out. Here are a couple of the ones that I would like to highlight for you. Check out This Round Is On Me. Gauri Devi Dayal talks to her husband Jay Yusuf about mixing business and pleasure. They're the husband and wife business partners at Food Matters Company. Give it a shot. Really fun show. On Nankari, they speak about chaat, the queen of the street foods. A fun episode. They canvass the beauty and romance of street food, its cultural importance in a city, and they also discuss the unfortunate harassment that street vendors sometimes go through. On Paisa Vaisa, we had Madhuchanda. They joined Anupam talking about the budget and the different aspects of it. Storytellers and Storytellers features Shreyansh Pandey, creator of Kulak. A great conversation and some interesting insights into facilitating and nurturing writers. Do check that out. On Thale Harate, the Kannada podcast, Mansi Prasad spoke to Pawan Srinath about the history and appreciation of Indian music. It's a really interesting conversation. They discuss classical music and how it evolved in India, what are the various musical instruments and how they developed. Really fun, interesting stuff. And with that, I hope to see you again next week.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one, or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are 2 passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to The Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.